Hey guys, welcome to today's video. We're going to be doing another mock draft post the Dolphins, the Eagles, and the 49ers doing all their weird trades, shifting that first round. We got Baskin on the channel for another mock draft. I know you guys kind of hated our mock draft last week, but we kind of switched things up this week, a little bit more realistic, especially reacting to those trades. So let's dive right into it, and I hope you enjoy. Hey guys, welcome to today's mock draft. We've got another mock draft on the channel. Obviously, after a big round of trades just on Friday, we saw the Dolphins making some moves, San Francisco moving up into the top three. We're going to be breaking all that down, but let's dive right in with the first overall pick. Baskin's back on the channel. You can give a little wave.
Yeah, you may be a little bit mad at me, Dolphins fans, but I'm making a quick second appearance over here.
Oh, yeah. Seeing if he can redeem himself. But I think with the Jags, it's got to be Trevor Lawrence. There's really no other option here. Sure, Zach Wilson showed up pretty well during his pro day, but I mean, Trevor Lawrence is the entire package. He's got the arm strength, the mobility, the athleticism, and then he's got the leadership too. So I think Trevor Lawrence is I'm not going to steal your term here, but I'm going to steal your term here. Home run pick there for the Jags. And I think that they really went anyone else, it'd really be a head scratcher.
Yeah, it was a good pick there. A very obvious pick. I'm here number 2 for the Jets. And I think it's an obvious pick, too. I'm going to go Zach Wilson over Justin Fields and Trey Lance. And I think he's just the guy with the most potential. And I also think he has the highest floor out of those 3 guys. I mean, Justin Fields is the fastest. But I think Justin Fields could easily bust. I think Trey Lance could easily bust. And I think Zach Wilson is going to come into the Jets with definitely – I think he's going to be better than Darnold day one. Personally, I don't think Darnold's a very good quarterback. And I think if you're a Jets fan and you still like Sam Darnold, then you're delusional. So you're going to go Zach Wilson, and you're going to be happy because if you're a Jets fan, you're sick of going 6-10, 5-10. A good year is maybe 7-9. It's time to switch it up and draft a franchise quarterback. So we're going to go Zach Wilson here.
Yeah, pretty solid pick. I mean, the talk coming out of, his pro day on Friday was that, the Jets are going to go out and get Zach Wilson. I mean, some of the throws he was making, moving to his left, throwing to his right, putting the ball right where it needed to be. I mean, really fantastic arm. Now with San Francisco moving up into the top 3, they gave up a lot of draft capital to do this. So it's got to be for a quarterback. And I know their whole thing is Jimmy Garoppolo is still going to be the start. He's not the guy, guys. I'm sorry, none of that's true. It's going to be one of the quarterbacks. Now the real question is it Justin Fields? Is it Mac Jones? Is it Trey Lance? And I think for me, it's got to be Justin Fields. I just love what Justin Fields has to bring to the table. And I think him and Kyle Shanahan's offense would be absolutely lethal with his mobility and all the things you could run motion-wise with Fields' athleticism. Plus, I mean, Fields has got a really good arm too. And I think that the mesh of guys like Kittle on the roster, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, with Justin Fields, I think that could be really lethal there in San Francisco, try and take them back to the playoffs and make a run for it. But I just really like what Fields could bring to that 49ers team.
With pick number 4, I think the Falcons last time we had them going Patrick Surtain. But I actually think, when's the next time the Falcons are going to pick in the top 5? And I think Trey Lance is on the board. I think he can sit behind Matt Ryan, kind of similar to Patrick Mahomes. He's obviously not Patrick Mahomes, but he's going to sit behind Matt Ryan, kind of like Mahomes sat behind Alex Smith for a season. He may actually end up replacing Matt Ryan because the Falcons aren't going to be very good next year. And I think this Falcons team is a team that is going to be very soon in a rebuilding stage. So getting your future quarterback in Trey Lance here is very smart. He's great mobility, good size, good speed, and he's your prototypical modern-day starting quarterback. So I think, get a new quarterback to go. Who's the Falcons' new coach? I'm forgetting for a sec.
Arthur Smith,
who came from Tennessee. And, I know Ryan Tannehill, he's a pretty mobile quarterback, so maybe he likes the idea of having Trey Lance there in his system.
Yeah, I like that pick. The only thing with the Atlanta Falcons and that selection there is I think that it wouldn't be shocking if they decided to trade back. We saw the Dolphins do it. I don't really think the Falcons really need a player at pick 4. I think their real needs are on the defensive side of the football. So unless they really want a quarterback to sit behind Matt Ryan, I think that they should probably end up trading back. And I think that's probably what they'll end up doing if they decide not to go quarterback. Now, though, let's talk about the Cincinnati Bengals at pick 5. They could go Penei Sewell, but I actually really like the fit with Kyle Pitts. And I think Kyle Pitts, the athlete that he is and the ability for him to line up outside and really win on the outside too, almost as a receiver. I mean, he really uses his strength, his size, his speed, really exceptional in that regard. I mean, he's arguably the best athlete in this draft class. And if you look at the Bengals roster and their depth chart, their tight ends aren't very good. CJ Uzoma isn't very good. I mean, he could put up like 200, 250 receiving yards on maybe like 20 catches in a season. But if you draft Kyle Pitts, you're giving Joe Burrow a legit number one option. And then you compare him with Tyler Boyd. You got Joe Mixon in the backfield. You're starting to create a nice set of weapons around Joe Burrow. I think Kyle Pitts is a no-brainer. And although you might say, tight end in the top 5, that's a little crazy. The athlete that Kyle Pitts is could make him a special talent in the NFL.
Okay, now I got pick number 6 here, and this is the Miami Dolphins. I don't want to screw it up for you Dolphins fans out there. And I'm going to reunite your quarterback, Tua. Maybe I don't think Tua is a future Hall of Famer or even a Pro Bowler, but I think he could use another weapon. And Will Fuller, I mean, he's probably not going to last the whole season. He gets suspended every other year. He's always getting injured. He's actually never played 16 games in a football
I think you just love insulting all our players. I really think that's
never played 16 games in an NFL season. So I think they're going to need some receiving depth. I mean, the Dolphins fans should know your receivers kept getting injured last year. So getting a guy like Devonta Smith, who's reliable, even though he's a smaller receiver, 6'1", 170 pounds, he can catch the ball with the best of them. He's a great route runner, obviously good speed, and I think he'll fit in very well in the slot in Miami. And obviously he's more than a slot receiver, but I think that's where he'll line up, and he'll definitely help Tua improve in his second year in the NFL.
Yeah, and I also think it makes sense for the long term. Will Fuller's only there on a 1-year deal. He might end up getting extended, but I think, getting a top-notch receiver, if it's Devonta Smith, if it's Jamar Chase, it makes a lot of sense pairing him with Devontae Parker on the outside. Now, though, let's go to the Detroit Lions. And I think the Detroit Lions are pretty happy here at pick 7. I think that their biggest need is wide receiver. Remember, they lost Kenny Golladay in free agency. They lost Marvin Jones Jr. in free agency. Those were their 2 best wide receivers last season, even though, Golladay only played in 5 games. But nonetheless, I think that them going out and getting a wide receiver, pairing them, with the guys they brought in, Tyrell Williams was one of those guys. I think that Jamar Chase makes sense. I think he's the all-around package at wide receiver. You could play him on the outside. I think you could play him as a slot receiver, as a bigger slot receiver, because he's so fast, as well as he's so great after the catch, really good yards after the catch ability, pretty good route runner too. And then he makes plays. And you'll see this in my future mock drafts when I continue to talk about Jamar Chase. But I just think that, what his ability to be a playmaker on the outside and to catch the ball, got really good hands. He overall has that, that superstar skill set that I think that Detroit Lions would absolutely be lucky to have. And then they get a legit wide receiver 1 to replace Kenny Golladay. I think it just makes perfect sense there for Detroit.
Yeah, he's a very good player. Okay, I guess we're moving on to the 8th pick. And I think Penei Sewell, he's sliding down the board a little bit. And I'm going to have him going here to the Panthers. Their starting left tackle right now is Russell Okung. He's a little bit old. He's not very good. And so Penei Sewell is a very good replacement. If they want to keep Okung for another season, they can line him up at guard. They can line him up at I guess they could line him up at right tackle. I think they re-signed Taylor Moton, so they wouldn't be doing that, but I guess line him up at left guard. They want to start Okung. But Penei Sewell, very high potential, very good power run blocker. He's a little bit raw. He didn't play last year, but he definitely has the highest ceiling out of any offensive lineman in this draft. And I think the Panthers want to protect their future starting quarterback. And I think Mac Jones, I think he's a solid player, but maybe they just stick it out with Teddy Bridgewater for a year since they couldn't pick any of the top 4 quarterbacks.
Yeah, I definitely like that Penei Sewell pick. I think that's just a great value pick for them there. Now it's the Denver Broncos at pick 9, and this is a little bit of an interesting situation because Micah Parsons could be a great fit, and we talked about that in the last mock draft, but I actually love Mac Jones, and I know that, Mac Jones might be a little bit of a reach here, but I think Mac Jones and his, he looks so calm in the pocket. And although, I don't think he has that massive arm, he doesn't have the arm of Trey Lance, doesn't have the arm of any of those top 4 quarterbacks, but he's very accurate with those underneath routes, good in the short intermediate passing game, can even push that ball deeper downfield. And I, reuniting him even with a guy like Jerry Jeudy, who he was teammates with at Alabama, in Denver, that could be a good place too. But at the end of the day, I just don't like Drew Lock. I don't think he's going to be the franchise quarterback for the Broncos. They might give him another year, but nonetheless, I don't think there's anything there. So I think, the leadership that Mac Jones really showed at Alabama, put up some crazy numbers last season, numbers that could even rival Joe Burrow's in a way. Joe Burrow's were definitely better, but Mac Jones had a very good season last year. And I think that, Denver needs a quarterback replacement for Drew Lock because he's not the answer. And I think Jones, what he was able to do, as a pocket passer, as a true pocket passer, could really help the Denver Broncos out.
Yeah, I think the pick's all right. I think he can do similar things to what Kirk Cousins did last year in Minnesota, rely on the running game and Melvin Gordon and the great receivers that my Denver Broncos have, and Cortland Sutton, the emerging young receiver, and Jerry Jeudy. So maybe, if he could live up to a guy like Kirk Cousins, I think the Broncos would be very happy. Obviously, our last two highly selected quarterbacks, Paxton Lynch and Drew Lock, haven't really turned out as well as we would have hoped so. So maybe Mac Jones, we hit on him. All right, so with the 10th pick, the Dallas Cowboys, their defense was terrible last year. They had Mike Nolan was their defensive coordinator, and he bombed. He bombed. They fired him. They brought in Dan Quinn, and Dan Quinn hasn't been good in a long time, but maybe he can bring back that Legion of Boom days he had in Seattle and get a guy in Patrick Surtain, who I think overall is the best cornerback in the draft. He's no Richard Sherman because he's a lot better of an athlete. Obviously, he's not as good of a prospect as a guy like Richard Sherman, but much better speed. Nowhere close on size and potential and stuff, but I think he can easily fit in and be the number one quarterback Dallas needs next to Trayvon Diggs. And that secondary needs a huge boost after last year. And they're going to be going against the Giants, who upgraded their receivers, going against the Eagles, who I think should upgrade their receivers, and going against the football team with Terry McLaurin, and they just got Curtis Samuel. So I think it's a must-need pick for Dallas to upgrade their secondary here.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I actually love Patrick Surtain. He's one of my favorite prospects in this draft class, just because of like the physical nature he plays with, and he uses his length and his size and his athleticism really well. But now let's talk about the New York Giants at pick number 11. And for them, I think that they could definitely improve a variety of positions. They really focus on the wide receiver position, so I don't want to look at Jalen Waddle. They could go MICAH Parsons, but overall, I really like RASHAWN SLATER because although, the Giants have tons of tackles right now on the roster, and their tackle position it's not set. I don't think they have any great tackles on the team. They got Andrew Thomas last year. They restructured Nate Solder's contract, but I think that they can play RASHAWN SLATER at guard, pair him with Will Hernandez on the interior of that offensive line, because SLATER can play every position on the offensive line. He's a plug and play starter anywhere you put him. And I think, for a Giants offense that's going to need all the help it can get, even though they did bring in Kenny Golladay, I think SLATER is a great pick here, as really strengthened the run game as well as the pass protection game too.
And the Eagles right now, they're extremely happy. They traded down from 6 to 12, and I think they still get the player they wanted in Jalen Waddle. They get the right Jalen. Last year they got Jalen Reagor, and that bombed. He's a deep threat who's not even fast. And what were you doing? You had Justin Jefferson on the board, and Howie Roseman screws up again, and he can't draft a receiver to save his life. I don't think the last few Eagles picks, they've all been terrible in the first round, and so maybe Howie Roseman saves his job here, and Jalen Waddle's a stud. I think he has the possibility to be the best receiver in this draft class. He has great speed, he has great hands, and he can actually be a route runner, something that a guy like Henry Ruggs or John Ross or some of these other speedsters who we see getting draft high can't really do. So I think Jalen Waddle, he had that injury to Alabama that definitely lowered his draft stock. Maybe he would have been a top 5 pick. But I think the Eagles are great. They're in a great spot here. They draft the player who I think they should have taken at 6, and they go out and get a receiver and someone for Jalen Hurts to throw the ball to. A little bit of Jalen to Jalen action, even though their first names are spelled a little bit different there.
Yeah. The only thing about Jalen Waddle that I personally don't love, sure, I've talked about it before, taking a speed guy in the first round, and sure, he's a route runner too, and he's definitely a better route runner than guys like John Ross, or even a guy like Henry Ruggs. But Jalen Waddle, we saw a very limited sample size of him at Alabama, and in that sample size, he was great, but I think he played under 1,000 snaps throughout his entire collegiate career. So staying on the field is another concern for that Eagles team, I guess, if they went and got Jalen Waddle. And we've seen the injury concerns with that Eagles team over the past few seasons. But overall, let's move to the LA Chargers now. And the LA Chargers need to solidify that offensive line to really help and protect Justin Herbert. And the left tackle position is definitely still up for grabs. And I think Christian Darrisaw makes a lot of sense. Left tackle out of obviously Virginia Tech. I think he's probably the best left tackle available. And once again, the Chargers really went into this offseason trying to make it known that they need to go out and protect Justin Herbert, their franchise quarterback. They obviously brought in Corey Linsley as a center. He's a really good pass protector, really good run blocker, but they need to continue to add some pieces on that offensive line to really make sure that Justin Herbert doesn't get his hit as much as he was last year. That was definitely a concern, and I think that Christian Darrisaw fills that need.
Got pick number 14 to the Vikings, and I think the Vikings could use a pass rusher on the other side of Danielle Hunter. I know they had Odenigbo. If I'm pronouncing his name wrong, I'm sorry. And they've had some other guys there. They had Everson Griffin for a long time, but they need a replacement on the opposite side of Hunter. And I'm going to have them go in Gregory Rousseau out of Miami, a guy who I think is very raw, but his potential is the highest out of any pass rusher in this class. I think right now he's better as rushing on the inside, rushing a guard instead of a tackle, but I think his potential is immense. He's a great athlete. He has great length, great speed at his position. And I think he'll fit in right very well next to a great athlete in Danielle Hunter, he's a very fast guy. And I think Gregory Rousseau, Danielle Hunter will offer that Vikings team a much needed pass rush to help that secondary, which is a little bit flawed.
Yeah, I definitely like that pick. I think Rousseau, although he sat out last year, he's long, he's lanky, he gets to the quarterback. I think that's exactly what the Vikings need. They need some pass rush. But now let's go to the New England Patriots. And I think for the Patriots, I mean, this is a dream come true. Look at the guys at the top of the draft board. I think for them, they really want to focus on the defensive side of the football. And I think Micah Parsons and Kwity Paye are two guys that could definitely fit into that Patriots team. I want to go with Parsons, though, over Kwity Paye. And I think Parsons as a linebacker would be absolutely scary next to, Kyle Van Noy, as well as Dante Hightower that they brought back. They brought in Matt Judon. That linebacker core would be absolutely ridiculous. And Parsons is a guy who might, he might struggle a little bit more in pass coverage, but as a run defender, this guy gets downhill in a hurry. He's athletic. He's quick. And if, he wasn't involved in that, in the little bit of a hazing scandal at Penn State, he could be easily going in the top 10. So I think, just the pure athlete that Micah Parsons is, you don't really see that a lot. And with Bill Belichick's defense, I think that Parsons could become, just a matchup nightmare.
Yeah, the rich get richer. Okay. Moving on to pick 16, we got the Arizona Cardinals, and they need a corner. I mean, they picked up Malcolm Butler. I think it's a solid cornerback 2, possibly cornerback 3. They have Byron Murphy. And so let's go out and get a cornerback 1. And we have one sitting on the board there, ranked 13 on this website. We got Caleb Farley at Virginia Tech. I think, in my opinion, he has the potential to be the best corner in this class. Great man, press man corner. I think his one problem is injuries, and that's the reason that he's falling here to 16. But the Cardinals picked up a guy last year, Isaiah Simmons, who kind of fell, and he kind of showed a little potential as the year went on. Very versatile player. And I think adding Caleb Farley to this secondary will be a huge plus and definitely help out that pass rush. With that great pass rush, I mean, they got J.J. Watt now. They got Chandler Jones. They lost out on Hassan Reddick, but they re-signed what's his name? Outside linebacker.
Marcus Golden,
who used to be on the Giants and the Cardinals, and he came back to the Cardinals last year. And I think with that great pass rush, definitely will help the secondary, Caleb Farley. And therefore, they could use another corner. So we're going to have them taking Caleb Farley here.
Yeah, that's definitely a perfect fit for them. Now, though, let's talk about the Las Vegas Raiders. And I think for the Raiders, I want to go out and give them some help on the offensive line. Obviously, they got rid of Rodney Hudson. They got rid of Gabe Jackson, got rid of Trent Brown, So why not go out and give them Alijah Vera-Tucker to solidify that guard spot? He could also play tackle too, but I mean, I think he fits well as a left guard. You can move Richie Incognito over to right guard. And you play Alijah Vera-Tucker as a left guard, really good in pass protection, pretty solid as a run blocker. Overall, I think that's a great pick for that offensive line because, I mean, this offensive line at the end of the day does need help. I mean, you gave away 3 of your better players on that Raiders offensive line. I know that was to create cap space to help your defensive line, but at the end of the day, you still need players on that offensive line that can play football. And I think Alijah Vera-Tucker is definitely a guy that you could put at either left guard, you could put him at tackle. He could be a versatile piece for that offensive line, really help with the run game and help in pass protection too.
Yeah, Incognito's nearing 40, so they definitely have to address that offensive line. Pick 18, I got the Miami Dolphins again. How fortunate for me. And I'm going to have them. I know Dolphins fans, maybe you want a running back. Maybe you want Najee Harris or ETN.
I want Najee Harris.
Maybe Myles Gaskin can hold down the job. Maybe you can select a running back in the second round. I'm going to have you guys taking Azeez Ojulari, and he's going to line up opposite of Emmanuel Ogbah. I mean, right now you have Andrew Van Ginkel, and I think he's an all right player, but I think he's more of a rotational pass rusher / special teamer, which he showed last year. And I think Azeez Ojulari, he's a great pass rusher. He has good speed. Um, he's he can play good run defender on your team. And overall, I think you need a nice secondary pass rusher opposite of Agba and take that pressure off of Agba, less double teams possibly. I think addressing the defense here, we addressed the offense early in the first round, picking up Devonta Smith. Now we're going to address the defense. And it's always good to go offense, defense, good to split it up there.
I actually don't mind that pick whatsoever. Yeah, sure, I like Najee Harris probably a little bit more, but I love what Azeez Ojulari brings to the table. He actually, I think, led the SEC last year in sacks, so production is there, and that's something that we've seen in the past from Miami Dolphins pass rushers, right? We've seen guys like Charles Harris and questionable picks like that. Deion Jordan's another one. We don't really want to talk about that. But nonetheless, I think what Ojulari was able to do, he's a little bit of a smaller pass rusher, but that allows him to play at almost an outside linebacker kind of role. But, he uses his speed well. He's fast, physical. I absolutely love this pick for Miami if they decide not to go for a running back. Now, though, with Washington, I actually want to give them Zaven Collins. And I think Zaven Collins could be a really good fit for them. I think that the one part of their defense that they could really improve is the linebacker position. And with a guy like Zaven Collins, who's able to be a really athletic, I mean, he's a big guy, really athletic dude who can get to the quarterback one. He was an absolute great pass rusher at Tulsa, really able to be an impact player getting into the backfield, but also he's a really good run stopper too. So I think that, that dual combo really helps with that Washington football team's defense. And I think that, the pass rush plus the run stopping of Zaven Collins could be really effective in Washington.
Yeah, definitely a good pick. I probably would have gone offense there, but their linebacker could need some improvement. Now I got pick 20, which is the Chicago Bears. And Chicago released Kyle Fuller, and he needs to be replaced. They have Jalen Johnson, who they picked in the second round last year. They don't really have anyone behind Jalen Johnson who's very good. So I'm going to have them taking J.C. Horn out of South Carolina, the Gamecocks. Well, one of the best mascots in college football there. And he definitely can be a great press man corner in that scheme. He'll definitely fit in well with that Chicago defense, which definitely will need to carry Andy Dalton, who's a very mediocre quarterback at this point in his career.
That's another video.
That's another video for another day. But the Chicago Bears, that defense, it still needs to get better. It's not what it was a few years ago back with my head coach Vic Fangio. So I'm going to have them going with a corner here in J.C. Horn.
I think they'd be very lucky for J.C. Horn to even fall to them to 20 after, he put up those crazy pro day stats rivaling Patrick Surtain. But now let's talk about the Indianapolis Colts pick number 21. And this might be a little bit of a surprise. You might think maybe they go tackle here, but I think that they could probably go edge rusher too. And after we saw that insane 40 time by Jason Oweh, I think he ran a 4.36 at 257 pounds. I think those are the stats,
insane,
right?
Pretty insane there.
Yeah, though that kind of raw athleticism you don't see. And although he didn't have crazy amounts of production at Penn State, it's similar to a guy like Kwity Paye. The pure measurables are there to the point where it's like, hey, with some coaching, with a little bit of time, these guys could be really special football players. I think Jason Oweh could be one of those guys. I mean, the Colts lost some of their big time pass rushers on the outside during free agency. They lost Danico Audrey. And I think that they could add some depth and, some
Justin Houston
and Justin Houston too. There you go. And they could add some depth to that, real pass rush that made that Colts defense really good last year. I mean, sure, DeForest Buckner was getting it from the inside, but bringing a guy like Jason Oweh who could bring it from the outside using his speed off the edge, that could be big for that Colts defense.
Yeah, definitely a good pick there. Now we got the Tennessee Titans, and I'm going to have them replacing Jack Conklin. Last year, they kind of put in a little bit of a Band-Aid. Dennis Kelly, they released Dennis Kelly, and I'm going to have them selecting Jalen Mayfield, who I think can help them with their power run scheme that they have going on there in Tennessee. Also, in pass protection, they really struggled in the playoffs and in the regular season, and he's definitely an upgrade, in my opinion, on Dennis Kelly, and they could use help in that position in tackle. They could use help on their whole offensive line besides left tackle. And maybe Roger Saffold, but their offensive line overall, it's getting a little bit older, and he can't be any worse than Isaiah Wilson. Adam knows way too much about Isaiah Wilson. He's an interesting story. He got traded to the Dolphins, and they released him immediately because he's an idiot.
Sure, yeah. Let's go with that.
We'll put it at that. He's not the smartest guy out there.
Yeah. I like that Jalen Mayfield pick. And also another thing with Jalen Mayfield, if he doesn't really work out at tackle, you can always move him into guard. I think he projects also as a guard. So that, that dual ability to play guard and tackle could help if, especially drafting a guy in the first round, you want to make sure that he's going to be solid somewhere. And I think that Jalen Mayfield, his ability to play two positions, that could be pretty good. Now, though, the New York Jets at pick 23, they got their franchise quarterback in Zach Wilson. And now they need to go out and get a running back that can help them out.
Stealing someone from the Dolphins.
And sure, I would love the Dolphins to go out and get Najee Harris. And I think my channel knows this, but I think Najee Harris could fit really well with the Jets. However, how much I hate to say it, I think he could because, he's a great running back. And what I mean by a great running back is he's a complete running back. He's got power. He's got size. He's got the pass catching. He's got the athleticism. Just watch his game against Notre Dame where he had that insane, hurdle over the defender. The only thing that he doesn't have is the speed. He doesn't have that elite top end speed, but he's got like the speed to outrun guys. I see him almost as a slower, maybe a little bit more powerful version of Aaron Jones, a little bit bigger. But overall, I really like what Najee Harris brings to the table. I think with the Jets offense, they address the wide receiver position. They address quarterback, obviously earlier in the draft. Now that they got Zach Wilson, now they need to go out and get a running back after addressing parts of their defense in free agency. And I think it's a perfect fit there in New York. However much I hate to say it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Najee Harris. You're stuck on a very mediocre team. You could have gone to the Steelers. I mean, they would have happily taken you. And with the Steelers, we're going to have them taking Samuel Cosmi, replacing Alejandro Villanueva, who definitely had a down year in his career last year. They're letting him go in free agency, and he's a good power run tackle out of Texas. The Steelers' run game was terrible last year, and that was a big reason why they were completing all those short passes, which was kind of making up for the run game there. That offense was really bad down the stretch. They started off 11-0. They completely collapsed, and hopefully reestablishing the running game, which is the Steelers, mantra. They like to run the ball, play hard defense. They were playing the defense. They just couldn't run the ball. And hopefully Samuel Cosmi helps them reestablish the run game there in Allegheny County, Pennsylvania.
There you go. Now, though, let's talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars. They got their quarterback. And now I want to give them, I think upgrade the defensive line a little bit. And Christian Barmore, I think, is a perfect fit for them. And I think the Jags could really upgrade that defensive line. Barmore is the best defensive lineman in the draft. But more importantly, I do know that they do have some good run stoppers on that defensive line at defensive tackle. I think that, Christian Barmore, adding him to the interior of that defensive line could really help. He's a good run stopper. Doesn't really get to the passer, doesn't really get to the quarterback a whole lot. But nonetheless, I just think that his presence on the defensive line would be pretty big. And Alabama's had a pretty good, record with defensive linemen, especially in the past few seasons. Just look at Raekwon Davis from last year, really good run stopper on the Miami Dolphins.
Washington football team, their whole defense went to Alabama.
Also, there you go. There you go. So I think that makes sense for Jacksonville. Now let's go to Cleveland.
Okay, going to the Cleveland Browns. I think the Cleveland Browns are a very well-rounded team. They don't need a lot, but they do need a linebacker. I'm going to have them a little bit of a surprise pick going Jabril Cox at LSU. He's the best coverage linebacker in the draft, and I think he's a very good guy to cover tight end. And there's some good tight ends in that division. You got Mark Andrews. You got possibly Kyle Pitts going to the Bengals, and you need a guy to cover those people. So we're going to go them. They're going to take Jabril Cox, will be their coverage linebacker, and Shione Taki, or whoever the Browns have right now. They're not very good at covering tight ends, so they need a little bit of an upgrade there. So they're going to be going Jabril Cox.
I like the pick. Pick 27, Baltimore Ravens are on the clock. And I think this is an interesting situation. You might think they need to go wide receiver, but I actually don't think they need to go wide receiver in the first round. I think there were some solid wide receivers that could fall into the second round. Guys like Rashad Bateman, Rondell Moore, maybe even Kadarius Toney. But I think a guy that makes a lot of sense here is, a pass rusher by the name of Joseph Osai. And I think Joseph Osai, what he's able to do as a little bit of a smaller guy, so you don't have to play him, with his hand on the ground. He can, line up as an outside linebacker. I'm just trying to find his name over here. Here, I'll just type his name in.
They have him ranked way too low.
Yeah, they do have him ranked way too low at Texas. But this is a guy that he was able to produce at Texas 1. But more importantly, just look at what the Baltimore Ravens have on that, as their pass rushers right now. Remember, they lost Matt Judon. And they don't really have another guy to pair with the other players they have on that team. And remember that Wink Martindale, the Ravens defensive coordinator, likes to go by a strategy of kind of blitzing, but using a lot of different guys and using a lot of different players at different areas to blitz. And I think Joseph Ossai is a guy that you could play as a Matt Judon type player, where you could put him on different areas of the field and just make him work on different matchups and really be a matchup nightmare. Athletic kid, able to get to the quarterback. He's got a knack for the ball, and I just love that burst that he shows off the edge.
Now we have the New Orleans Saints, and I'm going to have them taking Jeremiah Owusu-KORANOAH. He's sliding a little bit here, but he's a good fit in that defense. I guess he'll play outside linebacker, replace Quan Alexander, who they had to let go in free agency due to cap purposes. And overall, he'll be good he can play good pass coverage. He'll be okay in the run game. Not really going to offer you that much as a pass rusher, but overall, he'll definitely help cover some of those tight ends in the division. With in Atlanta, you got Hayden Hurst and you got Rob Gronkowski. Definitely help in that department.
There you go. Green Bay Packers now on the clock. And I think that they could really go out and get a wide receiver. And I think Rashad Bateman could be scary. But I actually really like Kadarius Toney. And I know that Baskin is like, he can't catch, and sure, that is a little bit of a concern. It is a little bit of a concern.
I mean, you got Marquez Valdes-Scantling, can't catch. You got Kadarius Toney, can't catch. Aaron Rodgers is going to be so happy next year.
But I think Kadarius Toney would work because I think that they need another guy to spread the field. Sure, MVS spreads the field out. But I like, almost the gadget kind of player that Kadarius Toney is. I mean, you can line him up in a variety of ways. And I think in a way you could say he's kind of like a Hollywood Brown kind of player, in the fact that, he's shorter a little bit, uses his speed as his main weapon, but he's got that straight line, just complete burst off the line of scrimmage that I think that the Packers offense could really use to really help spread the field out. Also, it gives a guy like Aaron Rodgers another weapon. And although I don't think Kadarius Toney is a guy who's going to have 800 plus receiving yards at the NFL level, I think that he could be a really valuable asset to that Packers offense that makes it worthwhile taking him at the end of the first round.
Okay, pick 30 to the Buffalo Bills, and I'm going to have them taking best player available. It's not Kwity Paye. It's going to be Travis Etienne, running back at Clemson. And I do not like Devin Singletary. I don't like Zach Moss either. And so,
you don't?
No.
What happened to I love Zach Moss in fantasy? I'll pick him up off waivers.
I mean, Zach Moss, he was great off my bench for a few weeks. He was a great bench accessory, but he didn't actually ever touch the starting lineup due to him being extremely mediocre and not very good at running the ball. So we're going to have them taking Travis Etienne here, who I think is a very fast player, very elusive, can catch the ball well, not really a power back, but neither is Devin Singletary. And you got Zach Moss there. Maybe they have him more as the power back in that offense. He definitely will help out Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and really make the offense a little bit more versatile and definitely help them in the playoffs so they're not just one-dimensional in the passing game. They can run the ball better. And I think it's time to move on from Devin Singletary. It may be a short run, but the run, in my opinion, should be over.
Yeah, I like that pick for them. I think that they need a running back, and that definitely makes sense. For the Kansas City Chiefs, I think this actually works out perfectly. I'm going to have to type another guy's name in because PFF ranks players terribly. But Liam Eichenberg, I think, is a perfect fit for this Kansas City Chiefs team. Obviously, they lost both of their starting tackles. Mitchell Schwartz is gone, as well as Eric Fisher. And I think Liam Eichenberg makes perfect sense. I mean, this guy is a plug-and-play left tackle. I don't think he's going to has a super high ceiling, but I think he doesn't have a super low floor either. He's not a project. I think he's ready to play now, and that's exactly what the Chiefs need. They need a guy to protect Patrick Mahomes' blind side. Although that might be scary going out and getting a rookie to do the job, hey, it's better than starting Mike Remmers over there at left tackle, and I know how Chiefs fans feel about that. So I think that Liam Eichenberg at left tackle makes a lot of sense, played really well there at Notre Dame. And I think he could be one of those better left tackles for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, I know the solution to your Mike Remmers problem. He'll start at right tackle. So there's your solution. Okay, we got the last pick, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And someone has been falling. It's Kwity Paye. I wonder why. It's probably because me and Adam don't really like him that much. I don't know. I feel like he's a bust. He's going to bust in this draft, but Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I still think he's better than William Golston, and I think he's a guy, he's very good athleticism, and I think he can come in and immediately compete for the job against William Golston and be a solid run stopper, situational pass rusher, and overall help that very stacked Bucs team, very stacked Bucs defense, and help their quest to winning back-to-back Super Bowls, which would be the first time in a very long time for any team. But the guy who can do that is Tom Brady, so we'll see.
And with that said, that's pretty much going to end the video for today. Did you agree with my analysis? Why or why not? Leave your comments and thoughts in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Also, if you're new around here, please drop a like and a sub on today's video. I'd really appreciate that. And with that said, I hope you enjoyed the video. And until next time, see ya.